I was recently watching some excellent sci-fi media that got me thinking about sand dunes. And yes, your guess was right. It was Alf.
Remember Alf?
Anyways, it got me thinking about the mightiest hot desert on our planet, the Sahara of northern Africa. It's maybe not as large as some of the planet-wide deserts of sci-fi, but it is impressive in its own right. Restricted by the Atlantic and the Red Sea to its sides, with the Mediterranean Atlas Mountains to its north and the Sahel in the south, it covers 9 million square kilometers, and about a third of Africa's landmass. The Sahara is larger than Australia, Brazil, and the lower 48 states. It is truly massive, an incomprehensible, endless ocean of sand. But one interesting statistic I read up is, despite this usual image of the desert, only 20% of it is composed of sand dunes. So if that's the case, what in the world is happening with the other 80%? It turns out the Sahara can be a pretty varied place, and in its massive confines is a lot of space for different landscapes and ecoregions. But first, a little lesson in biogeography, because what is an ecoregion anyways? Ecoregions are, by their most vague definition, where ecosystems and environmental resources are generally similar. Of course, such a definition is totally useless if we aren't all on the same page about what similar means. Even scientists aren't, so there's various different interpretations of the world's ecosystems depending on how specific you want to get. The nonprofit organization One Earth uses a definition which assigns more than 800 ecoregions across the globe, which can be explored on an interactive map of the Earth on their awesome website. Using their interpretations, ecoregions usually confine a unique regime of plants, animals, and other organisms that are relatively similar throughout the whole region. These ecoregions merge together into what One Earth calls bioregions, which divide large chunks of Earth's major ecosystem types along geographical lines. For instance, even though the Sahara is classified as all part of the desert ecosystem, One Earth separates it into two bioregions, one in the north where the climate of the Mediterranean and Atlantic affect its climate, and in the south, where mountain ranges change the layout of the land in their own way. It's using this framework that One Earth has developed that we will explore the many sides of the Sahara. Starting up in the north, the very first region of this desert a traveler setting out from the Atlantic coast would encounter is, shockingly, the Atlantic coastal desert. Hugging the coastlines here in stark contrast to the desert is the Atlantic Ocean. Here, the waters are especially lush with seagrass meadows, populated by scores of sharks, rays, and sea mammals. The land works with the ocean here. The critically endangered monk seals found here make their shelter in caves carved out from coastal rock. And the ocean gives back in return. Although it rains very little in this coastal desert, sea mist moisturizing the air gives this thin sliver of land a characteristically un-Saharan look. Peppered along with sand dunes are mangroves, mudflats, and briny marshes. These form the temporary home for literally millions of migrating birds, some of which flying from as far as Greenland and northern Europe. As well, some birds more local to Africa make their stay here, including the iconic flamingo. Other local fauna are found further inland, where the coast gives way to terrain dominated by shrubs and acacia trees. Here we get our first taste of some of these Sahara regulars. Jackals, foxes, and striped hyena are common carnivores here and throughout the desert, but on the coast, cower at the hands of the true alpha, the honey badger. For herbivores, the ever-present Dorcas gazelle inhabit the coast and the rest of the Sahara. Eating alongside it is the Barbary sheep, an animal which prefers rocky, mountainous terrain and not shaving its whimsical wizard beard. Moving further inland, up the north, is an ecoregion known as the xeric steppe and woodlands. Xeric, by the way, is a fancy word for very, very dry habitat. Still, we are not at maximum aridity yet. Influenced by the Mediterranean, these xeric steppes and woodlands experience occasional rainfall in the winter months. Various types of trees and bush grow in the differences in elevation here. For instance, although this ecoregion is home to seas of dunes, also known as ergs, minor mountain ranges such as the Ugarta in Algeria provide habitat for acacia trees. Depressions in the ground, known as dayas, collect soil and bushes in their basins, and stretching along the flat steppeland is the native flowering plant known as arfege. The animal assemblage is diverse. Once more, jackal and hyena are present and are joined by some of the cutest carnivores on the planet, fennec foxes, and in the western steppelands, the elusive sand cat. The sheep and Dorcas gazelle are accompanied by the slender-horned gazelle, the most iconic species of the xeric steppe. In the shadows of these larger animals are tiny creatures, like the sandfish. Unfortunately, not a real fish, but a lizard that seems to swim through loose sand. Many other birds and endemic mammals found only in the Sahara live here. They, and any other dying or dead animals, are prey to soaring raptors like the Egyptian vulture or the pharaoh eagle owl. The further south you go, the more barren and dry the environment gets, until you're in the ecoregions of the true desert. Here, rain is even more uncommon and sporadic, and these regions include some of the driest places on Earth, like the infamous Libyan desert. Even here, sand ergs form only a part of the terrain, although where they do form can grow hundreds of meters in height. Forming other large chunks of the terrain are hamadas, rocky plateaus devoid of sand, regs, large plains of barren gravel, as well as wadis, the Arabic term for dried riverbeds. Still, life persists. Hardy invertebrates are found, as well as a handful of antelope. One of the mightiest predators here is the smallest of the canids, the fennec fox. It hunts at night to not be scorched by the heat, using its giant ears to locate prey, its only source of both food and water. Plant life pops up wherever groundwater can be accessed, like along wadis and dayas where a desert plant's massive root systems will reach. As well, vegetation flourishes where underwater aquifers break the surface in the iconic desert oases. Another landscape speckling these barren deserts form the final ecoregion of the north, the halophytic zones. Many meters below sea level, these depressions in the land are the remnants of prehistoric lakes that have now dried up, leaving incredibly salty land. Some of these basins are intermittently flooded by rain, but most have their own supply of water from underground wells. Even though the salty terrain restricts most plants from growing here, certain salt-loving plants prosper. Small rodents and reptiles make their home here, who in turn feed weasels and foxes. The iconic camel also graze here during dry spells, and migratory birds will nest when the halophytics are flooded with water. Let me interrupt me just to say, where is that wonderful music coming from? Well, it comes straight from the genius mind of my song producer, Dara Hughes, who has done many of the background tracks for the channel. In fact, Dara has generously put together all of the channel's personalized music into an album, including custom album art. I am beyond gracious that my channel is a part of this. It's not every day a YouTube channel gets its own music album, so please go and check this out, as well as Dara's other wonderful work. He completely deserves it. In the south, a wide band of the Sahara forms an ecoregion called the Southern Desert. Like its counterparts up north, this ecoregion houses some of the most desolate locations on Earth. Home to more ergs, hamadas, and regs, in some places it does not rain for years at a time. Maybe the most infamous location in the Southern Desert is the Tanis Rift. Although beautiful from space, this land is bare of landmarks, water, basically anything at all. Because of its incredible hostility to life, the Tanis Rift has been coined the Land of Terror. Flight tickets now half off. In the less harsh regions of the Southern Desert, things still persist. Included in the usual assemblage of extreme desert survivors are some more eye-catching animals. The Saharan cheetah stalks the desert, and the critically endangered addax and damas gazelle are almost exclusively found in small pockets in this desert. Another one of the southern desert's more stunning residents is not an organism, but instead the rishat structure. a massive rock dome eroded away by the sands of time. This 40-kilometer structure is also known as the Eye of the Sahara. The southern desert is killing it with these names. Bespeckling this desert lies many more geologic formations. Volcanism has given rise to several mountain peaks in the southern Sahara. These form little islands of biodiversity in the desert, each with their own ecological character. Collectively, they are known as the montane xeric woodlands. Due to the altitude of the mountains, the climate here is generally cooler and precipitation is more abundant. Therefore, these montane ecosystems are a part of some of the most brilliant landscapes of the whole Sahara, with wonderfully eroded rock formations paired with lush greenery. The water even accumulates enough for permanent pools and ponds, populated in some cases by endemic fish species, not those fake fish from before, but real fish in the Sahara. On land, our antelope and mountain-loving sheep are joined by an old friend of the channel, the odd little hyrax, along with herons and cheetah. Indeed, many of the animal life here are the remnants of the ancient world of the Sahara. They, along with other pieces of evidence like the halophytic lakes, hint at a time several thousand years ago when this desert was greener and wetter than it is now. These relic animals were not its only inhabitants. Prehistoric rock art from ancient Africans preserve a human presence among these mountains countless generations ago. The dry and wet eras of the Sahara are cyclical and climate-related, so maybe someday with enough waiting or terraforming, humanity may once more walk on a green Sahara. Sound similar, Stilgar? Ominous desert prophecies aside, hopefully the wonderful ecoregions shown in this video prove that even now, the Sahara is a diverse landscape. Like everywhere else on Earth, it is more than just wasteland, but instead its own infinitely complex and varied ecosystem worth being studied and stunned by. I have a lot of thanks to hand out. Firstly, to Dara Hughes, who I mentioned before but will mention again just to say how much I appreciate his excellent musical talent. As well, the One Earth website was an indispensable resource in researching and visualizing the many regions of the Sahara. Of course, thanks to the videos and pictures I use, thanks for watching, and if you haven't seen it, go watch Dune. It's great. Okay, see ya.